Welcome to House Education. This is January 28th, 2026. We are now going to hear a presentation on Bill H-750 by its sponsor and then with Ledge Council. Without further ado, welcome to House Education.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Charlie Kimball. I'm a representative from Woodstock, Vermont, representing Woodstock, Reading, and Plymouth. Excited to be with you and members of the committee. Today, I'm introducing H-750, something that my school district, I hope, is glad that I am presenting, as I have been in discussions with them for a couple of years. I probably over-prepared with the amount of information that I've been studying and trying to retain, so I'll try to get it out in as short a time frame as possible. So this is H-750, and the purpose is to exclude capital construction costs from the definition of education spending for purposes of calculating excess spending, and also to deem as having good cause to commence construction before final approval under the state aid for construction program. Really, this bill recognizes both the current state we're in and the future state we are going to be in. And I say that to really recognize that we are not yet under a foundation formula, and the excess spending threshold is very much alive and well. And currently, the excess spending threshold includes any kind of payments on bonds incurred in order to pay for school construction. And what that has done for many schools is to prevent them from moving forward with a much needed construction project to either improve the facility, the health renovation of that facility, because they were going to then pay 2 times for whatever was over the excess spending threshold, which is $16,470. And so that has really caused many projects to be delayed. So that is one part. And it is with that that I'm coming to you saying that there are school districts that really would like to move forward and need to move forward. We have, I think, an inventory of $6 billion worth of improvements that are on the docket that are not moving forward. And we're in this limbo period because the foundation formula isn't there yet. And the state aid for school construction, even though it's called for in Act 73, we don't yet have the funding source. And the payments are not yet solidified as to where those payments would go. So a little bit about the excess spending threshold. The first I really know of its existence is with Act 68 in 2003, when it was really put in place to be a governor against excess spending by school districts as a governor against that newfound money they had from Act 60. And at that point in time, even then, principal and interest on capital construction, when it was deemed necessary, was not included in the calculation of education spending for the purposes of excess spending calculations. And that remained in place. There were a number of amendments to that particular part of statute, 2009 through 2016, as to what was included and what was exempt from those calculations. But then, as you recall, in 2022, excess spending threshold was really suspended from that point until 2029 because of what was happening with COVID and all the dollars being spent then. That was rescinded in 2024. And what's interesting is it followed a report from the Joint Fiscal Office at the time, and I share this because I think it's very interesting. And this date, if I may, Mr. Chair, February 17th, 2023, a report that had been requested to say, how can we contain education spending? And the report came with 7 suggestions. 1, adjust staffing ratios. You may be familiar with some of these concepts. 2, encourage or mandate more mergers. Okay. Consolidate administrative services, reinstitute or adjust the excess spending threshold, implementing education spending caps, strengthen the connection between budget votes and tax bills, or restructure education spending decisions to a statewide level. So I think in the last year, we spent a lot of time discussing every single one of these things, but the thing that did change in 2024 was to reinstitute the excess spending threshold. It was also the year in which a school bond for Mountain View School District of $99 million to build a new school was defeated. And that school district where I went to school, and so did my 3 children and my wife, the same year, they started actually looking at the school condition in 2016. This has been an incredibly thorough process, but a very expensive school, granted, with $99 million in a bond request. That school district is coming before the voters in March again for now a $111 million bond to look to build a new school. Is it necessary? Absolutely. I mean, there are sewage pipes that are backing up in the locker rooms during basketball games into the kitchen area. They finally also passed a new bond, or it's coming to the voters, to replace the heating system that was installed in 1958. Even with that, the building is still not going to meet ADA standards. It is still in really bad shape. It is not conducive to a current learning environment. All the reasons why we want to encourage schools to actually rebuild and replace. They are not unaware of the limbo in which we find ourselves, and that the timing is odd. That here we have a school which serves kids from 20 different communities, but it is not a big school. So they're right on the cusp of, is this one of those designated schools? They really feel like they can be a hub school and that they can service a larger number of kids at their facility because, one, they're doing it already, and two, geographically, they're located in a good area to draw from a very wide geographical area. So besides that point, so they're going back to the voters with a $111 million bond. Part of it is predicated on the idea of decoupling bond payments from the calculation of excess spending. So that's one of the reasons why I'm sponsoring this. The co-sponsors of this bill, Mike Marcotte from Newport or Coventry and Esme Cole from Hartford, also face similar challenges with their facilities, whether it's PCBs or other reasons to make improvements to their schools. So that's first. One of the calculations that the business manager at the Mountain View School District provided me was that if there was still the inclusion of principal and bond or bond payments in the excess spend in the per pupil spending, then the property tax on a home valued at $400,000 down the road would cost $4,000 more for the average property owner in Woodstock than it is today. Or than if it was not included. So there's a real dollar and cents thing for them to make the necessary repairs that they have to make to their facility, and a penalty really for doing so and taking care of their kids. So that's the first part. The second part is to look at state aid for school construction. And that is to try to make eligible for future state aid for school construction as long as the school follows the principles contained in Act 73 and also can comply with what either the State Board of Education or the Agency of Education would then deem necessary or appropriate to be eligible for state aid. And if I may, again, quote from Act 73, just a minute, it's right over prepared. That a new school, about excessive energy use, the Act actually lists many of the reasons why construction aid could be made available for new school construction projects. This is page 46 of H454 at the time. Let's see, right? For preliminary approval, when regional education opportunity and needs are met for economic efficiencies, suitability of an existing school building to continue to meet educational needs, statewide education initiative, secretary may approve application if threatens the health or safety of students or employees. Even that, just for that particular school, makes sense. And it does for other facilities as well. So that's the idea. And I recognize that right now we're still looking at the State Aid for School Construction Advisory Board and what they've suggested, what the Agency of Education is doing and setting up their new system, the 4 people that they've recommended to staff a new State Aid for School Construction division. And what I'm encouraged by is when I found the School Construction Handbook, I think that's what it's called, from a 2000 version, and the 2025 version is remarkably similar. It is not much different in content or format. So AOE has done this before. And I don't think it's really going to take that much time to set up rules or set up some of the procedures because they've been in this business before. My particular school district had already received preliminary approval as to the eligibility of expenses that would not be subject to the excess spending threshold before that was then taken away. So they already got that far down the road with the Agency of Education. And that was great for them. But now it's a different game. So that's why I'm proposing this bill.
Remind me, you have had a bond vote already, or have you just been waiting? Has there been a bond vote once?
We did have a bond vote that went down to defeat. It wasn't a huge margin of defeat. It was a couple of particular towns, one in particular that was able to garner enough people to say, no, we don't need this. So it was unsuccessful at that time. There's a huge push from our community to actually bring this to a bond vote in March. So yeah, they're pushing forward with it really hard.
How many kids attend Woodstock?
I think I was looking at the numbers. Hang on a second. And I think it's about 600. I mean, the school building is really built.
There's actual pupils as opposed to.
Yeah, right. Yes.
That is
Bodies.
That's bodies, not weighted bodies.
A school district itself, Mountain Views, is 1,001 students and has been that for the past 3 years as of the October 1st date, which you calculate. Yeah. And could it be bigger? Yes. So we receive a lot of tuition students, and we've had a lot of tuition students decide to go elsewhere. Not because of the education, but because of the condition of the facility.
Go ahead.
Just quick, middle high.
Yes.
It's a 7 through 12.
7 through 12.
Thank you.
Yep.
And
The new part of the school was built in 1968.
Tuition students are coming from where generally?
All over the place. So I was lucky enough to attend when the school had the Senate Education Committee there for a day, and they had a group of students sitting around a circle to talk about their experience. 2 were from Wethersfield. 1 was from Bethel, applied through an inter-school exchange. They don't have school choice. 1 from the town of Rutland. So they're coming from Ludlow as well, Pittsfield, Killington. There's 7 schools in the district anyway, but they're pulling from students from all over. I'd say probably from about a 40-mile radius for some of them. So, and right next door to us is Heartland, Vermont, which is definitely a sending town, and they send students all over the place, as you know. But so that could be another source of students if we look at trying to improve our facility and make it more welcoming.
There's one more question. How far are you from the nearest 712 or 912 high school?
Well, our school board has been in discussions with both the school boards at Hartford and in Windsor about how they can work together and cooperatively. Now, Mountain Views, as you've heard from Sherry Souza, our superintendent, forming the first BOCES in the state of Vermont around special education services, and that could be expanded. So that they recognized already the ability to work together. Hartford is a challenged facility right now in terms of some of the PCBs that they found in their building. So they have to look hard and fast. So how far are we from them by the crow?
The crow doesn't matter to me.
The crow don't fly. We're approximately 15 miles, I think, from Hartford. And Hartford is the closest. Windsor is probably 20 to 25 miles. We are lucky enough, both Windsor and Hartford are located on the Connecticut River. So in terms of pulling from a radius, the radius kind of stops when you look at the river right there. They're bigger communities than is Woodstock, but it's also tough for somebody from Killington to go to Hartford. So it's one of those weird things. I know you're in the business of drawing maps right now and considering that. Yeah.
Where do the kids go access to tech center?
That's in Hartford right now. It's in Hartford. Yeah.
Do you have room for around tech expansion?
There's been a lot of talk about not full tech, but tech light. So we've had a STEM lab inside of the school, which has been, I don't know if it's still going right now, to be honest, partnered with an outside firm to bring in some real STEM programming, which is tech light in a sense. I've always thought of it that way. And that's been happening or happened from 2018 through, I'd say, through the beginning of the pandemic.
Well, I know like at the Central Vermont one, those programs are always maxed out.
Yeah.
There's certain programs that max out sooner than others.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know if you had room for, like, if, or for just maxing out on something. Could you
Yes.
Build something
That's a-
there that would, could absorb the rest.
I don't think in the design of the new facility, there is space dedicated just for career and technical education.
You bring up a very interesting point, because Hartford's also, their tech center is contained, they've got PCB problems.
Yeah.
So they have to do sort of long-range planning and, you know, the fact that I would say that Representative Cole's also on this represents that a nearby high school is also struggling with the same issue. I think this really represents kind of the dilemma that we have caused for school districts, in that everybody's in a holding pattern waiting for us to make decisions. One of the reasons why we put the excess spending threshold back in was to control costs, and why we included construction costs was to sort of tell everybody to hold your horses until we come up with a larger statewide plan. Woodstock is the poster child for people, we can't wait any longer. You know, that's one of the real challenging dilemmas here, as is, you know, the cost of $111 million for 600 kids. And how do we, you know, sort of justify that? How close are you to the excess spending threshold currently?
We're over it.
You are just in general education costs?
Yes. So that's, 16,470, I think we're about $1,000 over.
And do you have a sense of if we went ahead and exempted capital bonds, the rather shocking $4,000 figure you gave us, what would that be if this were not part of the excess spending threshold?
I do have that. Thank you for asking. Okay, so tax rate calculations with building aid. No, sorry, let me get to my other side. Let's see. On a $400,000 home, it'd be $15,489 in year 2037. Some assumptions built in there about the project cost, about the long-term weighted average daily membership staying stable, about the budget increasing by 3.5% annually, the yield increasing by 3.5%, the penalty threshold increasing every year by 2.5%. So that's with the inclusion of bond payments in the calculation, be $11,122 without it. And that's using a $400,000 property value, which is not the median property value, but for argument's sake, it's a good example.
You worry about how you slice it.
Well, those are very big numbers. And then it's different throughout the district. I mean, Reading has certainly a lot of large properties, but the average value is much less. But I was just using an average as to what might be out there. I think the statewide average is probably what, 435 right now. Anybody? Anyone? Let's call it 435. So we could just increase that a little bit.
Thank you very much. Very, yeah, you are the poster child for the dilemma we find ourselves in. And while we sit here, your building isn't getting any better.
No, it's not. Thank you for that. But thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Do you currently have a bond that you're paying on for any
Oh, yeah.
construction that has been done over the years?
Yes. One was passed before, and it was for actually some of the preliminary planning and all that kind of stuff for the school construction. So I think it was a $4 million bond, and that was not subject to the excess spending threshold.
Correct.
So because it was before July 1st, 2024. And then this new bond that's coming besides the $111 million bond is another one to pay for the replacement of that boiler from 1958 and also the pipe system. So
But the last ones you're talking about haven't passed yet. I'm saying.
That's right.
one time.
That's right, that $4 million one.
But
from
but you
before.
do have construction costs, capital costs that you are now paying.
We do. It's pretty low. I mean, even looking at the report, yeah, the report from the State Aid Advisory Board, they're looking at what? There are 55 school districts that have, as a percent of the total budget, is actually compared to other states pretty low. But that's because a lot of people are doing what we're doing. We're sitting there waiting, figuring when's the right time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's coming.
Hello. Welcome. It's only 3 pages, so you can probably move through this fairly quickly. I think Representative Kimball gave us a very good understanding here.
So John Gray, Office of Legislative Counsel, I will screen share. Yeah, the bill itself is, I think, relatively simple to understand. There's really just 2 pieces to this. I did want to kind of contextualize a little bit about the difficulty of drafting something in this space that can provide any assurance to any school district. And the basic thing that you're confronting is not knowing a revenue source, not knowing prioritization criteria, not knowing how the program's going to be administered. Like, what can you tell people? So this bill, instead of attempting to give like false assurances to a future state about which we don't know so many things, takes a relatively targeted approach to 2 things we do know about and says, let's strike away at least these disincentives. It's not trying to say something about the future that we know so little about. It's trying to say, just right now, what can we do? The 2 things are what to do about excess spending and what to do about the way approvals are made under the State Aid for School Construction Program that was contained in Act 73 and goes effective July 1, 2026. So Section 1 is amending your definition of education spending for purposes of excess spending. So on page 2, this is what you see. Down on line 11, as you know, for purposes of calculating excess spending, we have exclusions from education spending, things that don't get picked up. And just to, I think you guys already know, but the way excess spending works is you take a portion of your education spending and you double count it. So you get taxed twice on that particular piece. And so by excluding some of your ed spending from the excess spending, you're saying you're distributing the costs of raising those funds across the state and not so much raising the liability of the school district with those funds. So what this does is existing exclusion is for all bonds approved by voters prior to July 1, 2024. Those are already excluded from excess spending for purposes of that calculation. And this is saying just exclude voter approved bond payments regardless of date, right? So this would now extend that exclusion to voter approved bond payments for capital construction post July 1, 2020, or post June 30th, 2024. So you would be expanding the category of bond payments that are excluded from excess spending, which would mean you're removing one of the disincentives for folks trying to pass those budgets or pass those bonds, because currently when they are thinking about this decision, they have to factor that bond into the tax rates that they're going to face, and they will be higher if they're included in excess spending. So that's the first piece, is excluding all voter approved bond payments from that excess spending calculation. The second piece is an amendment to a newly created section from the State Aid for School Construction Program in Act 73. And this is a section, I may actually jump to the actual statute so you can see. As you know, the State Aid for School Construction Program, as will come effective July 1, 2026, but without an identified revenue source, has a preliminary approval process. It also has a final approval process. And I just wanted to flag subdivisions 5A and 5D. 5A says, unless approved by the Secretary for good cause in advance of commitment of construction, a school district shall not begin construction before the Secretary approves a final application, etc. And then subdivision D says a district may begin construction upon receipt of final approval. However, a district shall not be reimbursed for debt incurred due to borrowing of funds in anticipation of aid under this section. So if we take these together, the way that I read this is you're intended to go through this final application process, get your approval, and then you're going to get your aid determined on that basis. You wait to begin construction until afterwards. But there is this line about approved by the Secretary for good cause in advance of commencement. So this is what H750 does. In its second part, it says adds a proviso to that 5A, and it says, provided that any school district that commences construction before July 1, 2026, which is the date that program is intended to go effective or will go effective, provided that any school district that commences construction before then shall be deemed to have good cause, meaning link those together. You shouldn't get dinged basically for commencing construction in advance of that final approval. That's the effect of the two sections. Excess spending exclusion to take effect on passage, and then that final approval for construction aid would take effect the date that the program goes effective. Section doesn't exist until then, technically. So that is the two pieces, excluding all voter approved bond payments for capital construction from excess spending calculation, and then trying to prevent a school district from being dinged for commencing construction before final application approval under the program, which of course couldn't happen today. The program is not running. So that is the bill.
Great, thank you. Representative Kimball, probably following up on the second half of the bill. That implies that the intention is that you guys would put a shovel in the ground before July 1st, 2026.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure that they can move that fast, to be honest. But with the notion being, things we don't know is if the program can be stood up by July 1st, 2026. So I was just looking at that date saying, oh, I'm not sure we're going to be able to meet that anyway from a state standpoint to be able to stand it up by then. So I don't know.
The other thing to offer in that context is at the point that there is a program existing, you can then submit the final app. It is a question whether it could be approved, but you're at least in a different posture than you are today. You still may have the question whether you can get what you need, but there's at least the literal possibility that you can.
Okay, great. Thank you both very much, and we will adjourn there to the